Calling back to previous episodes today. It's another wet day in the north. I'm on my way to the workshop in the 300. And I thought I ought to give you a little update because plans have gone awry. First of all, real work's kind of got in the way. Funny enough, in part driven by the EV videos, I've picked up a couple of clients, potentially a couple of clients off the back of it. But more generally, I'm self-employed. When work comes along, I kind of have to take it. And lots of work's come along. So what was going to be a completely clear week of working in the garage has instead been a pretty worky week. Still got some time in there, just not as much as I expected. And I'm not going to get as much time as I expected because on top of that, we've got COVID in the house again. Not me yet, but for the next few days, this week, next week, I'm going to have enhanced dadly duties of one form or another. And so I'm not going to spend as much time in the garage as I would have liked. That means my schedule, getting this off the road today and getting the upgrade done by the end of next week are kind of out. I will still make some progress, but you might see more videos from the home workshop, doing some interior stuff, maybe some wiring. You may see nothing at all if I come down with COVID as well. We shall see. But nonetheless, got a few hours there today. Well, a couple of hours at least, when I plan to get those brackets welded on for the charger and get the bracket made up for the coolant reservoir and start at least to take the mock-up apart and prepare all the parts to go in here. So everything needs cleaning up, welding out, and painting. And painting, I was really hoping to be getting at least first coat of paint on today, and that ain't gonna happen. Well, yeah, can I finish and weld up 2 sets of brackets, strip down a car, weld it out, grind it all down and paint it in 3.5 hours? No. So yeah, slight delay to the schedule. Nonetheless, progress will be made. About 5-10 minutes out from the workshop now. It's only about a 15-minute journey from my house. And when I get there, I'll probably just stick a time lapse on and capture as much as I can because I need to make some moves. Something I forgot about because it was tucked away behind the battery box is actually we still need to brace this motor mount because it's all a bit wobbly. So I'm going to come off this one. I think there's actually enough clearance over the steering rod, whatever you want to call it, that won't interfere with any of our cooling pipes. I'm thinking I might just actually extend the 6mm plate out to here. I've got an offcut that will work quite nicely. So I'm just going to grab some cardboard, template that out, cut a piece out and then tack it on that I can weld out when it's out of the car. So tack it, I've already got the sort of the foot plate here, just needs a bit of cleaning up. So tack to there, and then we've got really good bracing against the old motor mount, and that shouldn't rock around so much. There's my cardboard template. I actually cut the template a little bit small on this edge, so I've just added a few millimeters there, which you can always trim back if needs be, just to make sure it's got a good fit. Put a little arch in to make sure there's plenty of clearance to the steering rack. I would like to cut this out with the plasma cutter, and I'm trying to decide if my plasma cutting is good enough. Yeah, let's give it a go. It's got our piece clamped up with a guide. Our plasma cutter's on, compressors on and charged up. Let's see how this does. That took a bit of getting through. It is pretty thick after all, but it got there. And actually, if you look at the edge, if you ignore all the spray and the spatter, that edge is pretty clean. And so with a bit of cleanup, I think I'll get quite a nice line out of that. I think I'll do the other ones the same way. Might just crank the power up a little bit, see if I can get through it a bit quicker. It took about 5 passes to get fully through it, and became a little bit awkward because the spatter meant you couldn't drag the torch straight. But yeah, I think that could actually look pretty good. Well, the bits with the guide went pretty well. The freehand stuff, not so much. The shape's not bad, but I just wasn't getting all the way through, and I kept having to sort of tilt it to try and see where I was going, so that clearly needs more practice. But I'll finish that up with the grinder and try and get a nice smooth curve there. Notice this little bit of, this is not blood, this is red plastic from the handle of the cutter. Just got a little boo-boo there, so yeah, no great surprise, it's rather hot. Bit of hot and heavy grinder action, and that's where we're at. Not a bad curve, considering it was done with just mostly a grinder and a flat wheel. Slight off there, but that's all right. So now time to get this in here. I've cleaned up the other sides. Need to get that tacked in, get it mounted up with the magnet, get it probably slightly more than tacked in, given the weight of the steel and the chance of it coming away. I'll get a good bead on that, as good a bead as I ever get anyway, and yeah, that should look quite decent really and not get in the way of anything. This will come out over the top of it, and probably just tuck up under there along the top of the rail like this until it gets to actually here where it's going to have to duck under. Anyway, we'll work it out. Fairly typical of my welding. Nice bead here and completely miss half the material. So go completely wide, sway all over the place, join the two, but it's really ugly. I'll come back and tidy this up later. Nonetheless, that'll hold for now. There's a couple of tacks down there, big tacks. And yeah, that, you can see, no longer rocks. So quite happy with that as a solution really, quite tidy. One more thing to attach or bolt on maybe before we can pull this apart, and that is a bracket for our coolant tank. It's going to sit there somewhere. There's a couple of threaded holes on the back here. So what I'm thinking is just a bit of bar to tie into those, and then tie into here. I want to sit it sort of as close to here as possible without knocking, as close to there without knocking. So something like that. Not too low, not too high, probably about there. And easiest thing is probably just to weld it on like we have on the other side. But actually it'd be quite nice to be able to unbolt it if we need to get in it and pull out the ABS pump. So, best way to do that. There we go, some of my better welding needed very little cleanup, which is nice. We've got a nice stiff bracket for our coolant reservoir. So I can now unbolt this cage, take off the power steering pump, take off the vacuum pump, remove the heater, and then clear some space and get the crane in ready to move the motor and gearbox. Not going to get that done today, my time, not your time, but we'll try and come back next week and get that withdrawn. But at least we'll have this out ready to weld up and get ready for paint. Not bad for 3.5 hours. Some brackets welded into the battery box, the bracket made for the coolant reservoir, the brace made for the motor mount. A bit of a cleanup started, still a lot to do. I want to get this a lot more sorted before I start doing wiring and plumbing and transferring things over. I don't want to be hunting around for parts that I don't know where I've put them down. So big tidy up before we actually take the 300 off the road, but got the engine crane out from under the motor for the GT and got that ready to lift. So depending on how much time I get next week for me, maybe second half of this video for you, we can get the 300 off the road and get the rest of that out. Or actually I might drag the kids into doing some painting if I can get in and just finish prepping this up. It doesn't need much, just a few bits of grinding here and there. Then maybe I can drag the kids into painting this, painting the engine mount, painting the battery box so that it's all ready to go in. I would like to, if I can, and I think I'm probably not going to get time, I really wanted to clean the engine bay in the 300 and give it a really good going over with just some brushes on an electric drill, some degreaser, and then maybe a steam cleaner. We shall see whether we get time to do that. Maybe I just accept that the 300 is going to be off the road for a couple of weeks and work out a way around it. At least I guess with one of the family having COVID, there's only one of us that's going to be driving anywhere at any time, so maybe that works out. Anyway, in case I'm not back, bye, thanks for watching, please subscribe and like, but we shall see.